Hey everyone, welcome back to My Friends and Their Stories. Today on the couch we have Amber and Justin Bisnauth. Hey you guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Amber and I go way back to when she was younger and I was doing youth ministry, so that's a cool thing. Justin and I don't go that far. So how you guys feeling about everything?
Good. No complaints.
No complaints. Are you nervous?
Um,
Because this is going to millions of people.
yeah.
So that's my vision anyway.
Yeah.
Someday, yeah.
We're agreeing with you.
I appreciate that. So let's get right into it. We're going to talk a little bit about how did you guys find Jesus, right? Because he's the most important. So let's start with him. So, ladies first.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I was raised believing in Jesus. My mom was raised Catholic, and she was just intentional about. By the time she went to college, she was like, I haven't read the Bible. Like, I know God is real. Like, I need something more. So she kind of went through a journey before she had me. And so when she had me, she wanted to start me off with a foundation and got me like this little book, like that kind of summarized different Bible stories. And so she started me off very young, went to different churches. But if you ask them, the older I got, the more they felt like the roles reversed. And they'd be like, I'd like stand in front of my dad while he was watching football. Like, which one of you is taking me to church? But I think it's the seeds that they planted and the hunger that both of them have had. Like, my dad won't give himself enough credit, but I think the wisdom that God has given him, that he's now seeing like coming to fruition, like God's always had a hand in their lives, and I think they've always had a heart for him. So I think even the things they weren't aware of planted seeds in me to be able to desire God. Like, that's never been a question of questioning his existence. The question has been, am I valuable enough? Like, what does that mean for God to love me? But so I'd say like I was definitely given a great foundation, great church, starting in like 3rd or 4th or 5th grade at World Harvest.
Wow. So,
yeah.
And was there a specific experience? So what was that kind of specific experience when you were like, God, I'm going for you?
I don't know if I had like a turn the leaf experience. I think I was more, again, just praise and kind of, I'm like, yeah, God's real. Yes, I tithe and I see like God will give me little, like in high school, I remember I gave something. It wasn't a tithe, but I like gave something to someone. Like that same day, I got like 5 times back that like free this. I was like, Lord, that's so cool. And I was just like, as I was processing, like, what is tithe and like offering? And it was cool that God would make those connections, like teach me as I grew up. I think in college is where it got tested. I went to college in California, which like from Georgia to California, like at least most everybody believes in something. Oh, not God, Bible Belt, whatever you want to call it. California was the first time I was exposed to so many people who wouldn't even acknowledge that there is a God. And so not that I was tested in my faith so much as I was asking questions I hadn't really been encouraged to ask because that just wasn't the environment. But I was like, does God really care about me? Like, there's so many people in the world. Like, why me? So, I would say there was a moment after graduating college where I like got, I don't know how deep you want to go, but like I questioned that kind of deeply. Got a little sad, but yeah.
But you stuck to the foundation that
Yeah.
So lay good foundations for your 2 year, right? Yeah, is that what we're trying to say?
Yeah.
How about you, Justin?
So
Not the same story.
yeah, not at all. So for me, I was raised in the church. So my grandfather was a pastor. So I knew a lot about God, but I never really had that experience with him. And I've always had a curiosity of like the other side. Like if my brother was Mario, I was Luigi. If my brother was the good guy in the video game, I was the bad, whatever, it always wanted to see what was on the other side. But at a very young age, I did have an experience with the Holy Spirit where I didn't realize what the impact that it had on me. And I think going forward in life, I tried to find that experience through drugs, alcohol, all those things. And I realized that was the one thing that I was missing. But yeah, I would say for me, it was really hitting rock bottom in the sense of I can't figure it out for myself. Everything that I'm trying to do is not working. Everything that I'm trying to do and that I think is best for me is not working out for me. So I realized that God had all those things. And the peace that I have now is nothing in comparison to the peace that I thought that I had.
Sure. So let's talk about that a little bit because you kind of gloss over it, but you got a really cool story and I want people to hear it. Not cool in what you were doing, but cool in how God kind of brought you out of that. So talk a little bit more about you get into drugs and alcohol and you get into some trouble kind of, and you have parents that are pretty strictly going to church, right? And a family and a brother, right? That are really kind of pressed into the church and you're out here a little bit. and you're going through some things. Tell me a little bit about what that looks like, if you can.
So, a lot of people don't know, I started smoking weed and stuff like that at a very young age. It started off as me kind of just looking for a friend group, thinking that I knew that I was different. I always knew I was different, but I didn't know that it was with God. So it started off maybe just like smoking weed, and then it turned into other drugs, and then it turned into, hey, like I could supply my own habit by selling drugs.
Yeah.
So it was never like this mindset of like, I'm going to get rich off of this. I'm going to be the biggest thug or drug dealer in the world. It was never that mindset, but it was like, hey, I can make some money off this, and I can supply my own habit. Like, cool, let's do it. So I got caught up doing a lot of things. So it was like getting in trouble with having drugs. It was getting in trouble from stealing. It was getting in trouble from all different kinds of things in that way, like DUI. Like,
were you stealing to support your habit as well? Or?
That was more so for money.
Okay.
Because I knew I could resell this stuff. But I mean, ultimately, it was, a lot of the money's going towards a habit.
Sure.
Yeah, and I really had an encounter with God in the sense of when I hit rock bottom, I decided to trust him. I decided to say, hey, look, God, I know I've tried everything my way and it's not working. So if you're real, I'm going to put everything into you. Like, I'm going to trust you with everything, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it's hard. I want to give you my thoughts, my goals, my dreams. And
rock bottom for you potentially involves some jail time.
Yeah. So I was facing jail time. I don't know if you want me to go into the whole thing. I love telling people this, but
I think people need to hear it. Whatever I share.
Okay. So the moment it happened, I got in trouble, and I was dealing with some jail time, or even possibly getting deported because I'm originally from Canada, as you know. So I was facing all these things, and I was looking at jail time. I was talking to my lawyer, and they were like, hey, what do you want to see come out of this situation? But then when we got to the judge, he would tell them the complete opposite. He was saying that I was agreeing to the jail time and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah.
But also at this time, I had really turned back to God, and I was like, all right, God, like, let's try it your way. Mm-hmm. And so I got a decent job. I'd gotten my life back in order. I was back living with my parents, and I didn't want any more setbacks.
Sure.
So
trying to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a crazy story happened when I was at court. And I thought I'm with my mom, and I'm like, I'm thinking it's the end for me. I'm like, all right, like,
I'm going to jail.
Yeah, I'm going to jail.
Yeah.
And I get before the judge, and my lawyer is putting off my court date and saying that I'm agreeing to this jail time. So I'm feeling hopeless, but I'm like, God, give it to you. If I even have to go to jail, I know you're still with me, and I'm not going to turn away from you because the outcome I want is not coming to be about. And so the judge gets mad at my lawyer because he wants to set back my court date again, and he's seen me multiple times.
Sure.
So he's like, so he goes to the lawyer, and he's like, so what are you doing to help him? Because he's trying to go move on with his life. He's trying to get past this. And the lawyer's like, well, but like starts trying to explain himself, and the judge turns to me and is like, Justin, you know what? You're not going to go to jail unless you mess this up for yourself. And prior to this, everybody before me was getting jail time.
Yes.
For the same things, or even worse, or even less than what I was doing. And it was like, so I'm looking like, are you serious? Like this is not real. Like,
you're right.
Yeah. And he's like, so he gave me a long list of things that almost seemed impossible to do. But that's even a story in and of itself of how God made that happen. I ended up not going to jail, and
Amen.
Ended up meeting this amazing.
Yeah. So let's talk about, well, congratulations. That's a great story, right? That you're in the courtroom, and I imagine kind of the thoughts that are going through your mind when person after person after person is going to jail, and you're like, oh, I'm going to go. So I'm a guy, whatever. I'll do ministry in jail. Yeah. And then suddenly he intervenes and sends you away from you. So that's amazing. But then you meet this lovely young lady. Tell me, either one of you, a little bit about how that happens, because I actually love this story. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Okay.
She's got to do all the talking today.
Yeah.
Okay.
She told me this beforehand. So
I have some questions for you, Amber. So let's sit down.
So when we met, it's so interesting actually because, you know, like you mentioned, my family was going to the church before. And I remember way back when I was younger, I don't remember what age exactly, but I remember Pastor Mick bringing her on the stage one time.
Oh, wow.
And she was running track and she was going to state. And they were praying over her just that she would, you know, do great and represent God and all these things. And her name stuck with me. I don't know why. Like, and this is maybe a decade before. And I'm like, so when I saw her, we actually both went to Encounter. So I'm kind of listing some details. But so I ended up coming back to the church and I decided to go to the Encounter. And
Encounter was a 2.5 day retreat that we do where basically it's so you can sit down and get away from the rush of the world and encounter God.
Yeah.
So you guys are both at Encounter.
She came back from California from being at school and she didn't know what to do with her life. And
well said.
And I was coming back to the church.
She didn't even doubt that at all.
Yeah.
She's like, that's pretty much what it was. Yeah.
And so I see her and I'm like, oh, I remember her. I remember her being the track star. Yeah, or whatever it was. But so I was like, wow, like that's cool. Never met her in my life. Never spoke to her, nothing like that. But her name, I remember Amber Lewis.
Yeah.
Then I was like, okay, cool, whatever. So we go through Encounter. We don't really even talk to each other. But she said she noticed me at some point.
What do you mean by noticed him, Amber?
I was walking down, the guys, no, you're good. The guys were sitting on one side, the girls were on another. And like, I walked past one guy and I was like, oh, like I just noticed him. Like, oh, he seems attractive. And God just said, no. And I was like, I wasn't even, okay, that's fine, whatever. And then I like walk all the way to the front and I see him and I was like, wow, he like just stood out. I was like, I haven't seen him before. I don't know who he is. Like, he's attractive, but it wasn't like a distracting attractive. It was just like, I wonder who he is. And then I heard his name later and I was like, Malcolm, I was a brother. That was the whole thing. But that's what I meant. Like, it was just like he stood out. And that's it. Yeah.
And that's who I was for a long time. Is wow, Malcolm has a brother.
Yeah.
Surprise.
You were. We're sorry.
Malcolm's brother.
Malcolm.
So after that, we ended up having the follow-up class in Encounter Your Destiny, right?
Yep.
It's called. And she sat like behind me. But like, you know, and mind you, at this time, I moved back in with my parents, and my dad was like, "Don't get another girlfriend. Don't like if you're gonna live here, get your life together." Like, so I was like, "Okay, cool. Like, I'm not even gonna look for that." So after that, we're in the Encounter Destiny class. I don't think we ever spoke in the class really either.
Yeah,
we did
because we'd have small group on Thursdays and then the class on Sundays, and so it was just like little conversations.
Yeah, maybe little conversation and then. But there was a time at small group when we both went to the same small group on Thursdays, I think it was. And I went up to her and I was like, let me just like, I'm seeing her all the time now, like
differently.
And I was like, hey, because I played a lot of basketball and she ran track, and I was like, hey, you know, did track ever turn into like a job for you, like, or like, you know, stop being fun at some point. Like for basketball, that's what happened to me. And she was just like, that's a conversation for another time. And walks away. And I'm just like,
all right, so hold on. So she sees it another way. So let's hear your side of the story.
From my perspective, I remember him like coming up and like starting a conversation like, oh, like, and I'd been getting a lot of pasta for whatever. So we both kept getting up to get more pasta during the small group. And so then at one point he like comes up, he's like, oh, hey, like, you know, I know you ran track. Like, did that ever feel like a job to you? And I was like, and I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, like you have no idea. But like, I don't want to get into that now. Like, we don't really know each other like that. So I'm just like, yeah, it was, but yeah, we can talk about that another time. I remember changing the subject. I don't think I walked away. I'm pretty sure we did. So I don't know. Jury's out.
Well, we talked at some point.
Yeah. So after that, we would go out with the small group, and there was just one day where we were bowling, and every time I'd bowl, she would be in the next lane bowling, And I would just be like,
That's
all right.
setting you up all the time. Yeah.
I'm like, something's happening here. So let me just I started challenging her like, hey, like, let's see what you got kind of thing, like each time. And she ended up beating me. But after that, she was very intentional in church about like coming to talk to me. So like, I knew she had some interest, but my mind is like, my dad said, leave this alone. It's not time. It's not the right time. So I eventually, after we went bowling, I was like, all right, like she's talking to me all the time. I went to my dad and I asked him, I was like, hey, so there's this girl, like, what do you think? And he's like, so have you told her everything that you're going through? Because it was a lot, the jail time, all this stuff. I was like, yeah, she's fine with it. She said that she wants to get through it and all this. And I'm like, and he's like, so what's your problem? So I'm like, what's going on here? Yeah, I'm like, and then I actually went to somebody else in the church and asked them the same thing. And literally almost verbatim, they said the same thing to me. And I was just like, okay, this sounds like God. Like, sounds like God's doing something here. So we would talk after small group and stuff like that. And one day I was just like, I gotta get my payback in bowling. So let me get you a number.
Yeah. Like, oh. Were you like, it's about time? Or
it was like 2 weeks prior, I just like, God, because I started liking him. I was like, I don't want to just like someone and then it just be a thing. Like, I was like, if he asks for my number, then I'll consider it. But other than that, like, I'm an outgoing person naturally. So like, yes, I would talk with him, but like I intentionally was like, I'm not going to do anything pursue-y, like, or like could be interpreted like that. Like, if he wants to, he can. Otherwise, we're just going to be friends. So
nice.
That was my perspective.
And so can I ask how you proposed to this lovely you?
So we went.
The story?
It's kind of. So we went I took her to the botanical gardens.
Nice.
One day. It is kind of a story. So we had a friend of ours, Kayla Ham. She is the photographer.
Oh, you set this all up.
Oh, yeah. It was
excited. I like it.
It was kind of thought through, but you know, when you get to asking, you're kind of like, at least for me, it was kind of, what am I doing? What's going on here? But anyway, so we're walking through the botanical gardens and there's a specific spot because I went the day before to like, where can I do this? Yeah.
Wow, you scope. This is impressive.
So we get there and we get to the spot and I'm like looking for Kayla to make sure she's hiding somewhere.
Hiding in the bushes.
Yeah. And I'm like looking around. I'm like, I don't see her. I don't see her. So I'm stalling. And I'm like at the spot. I'm like, wow, look at this scenery.
It was so weird. I was like, what is...
I was like, I'd love to have land like this in my backyard and all this stuff. I'm just stalling. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know. Like in my mind, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, where is she? So I was like, whatever, I'm just going to go for it. And got on my knee, did the whole thing.
Nice. That's a story. I mean, men don't always go the day before to scope it out. And here there's a photographer and in the bushes.
Yeah. And the thing that Dale mentioned was that like he felt like God had given him a date with when to propose prior.
Yeah.
God had given you a day to do it?
Yeah. So that's like, yeah, it gets deep. I actually just shared this with somebody at my job, and I know God's using this testimony to help people, but he gave me a date, like literally a date, and I was like, God, I can't go into a marriage with all this baggage of the jail stuff. So this is prior to me going to the judge and all this stuff, and I was like, God, I can't, like, this is an amazing girl, like, I don't want to just be in another relationship. If this is my wife, then, I will be obedient. Like, I'm trusting you with this. If not, take it away. So he gave me the date, and the date was coming up, and I'm like, God, this stuff ain't, like, maybe that was my flesh. I'm telling myself because I'm still dealing with all this stuff.
Yeah.
And a week before the date, God supernaturally cleared it all out.
Wow. Like
literally a week before. And mind you, I had to put my faith out there, and I started paying for a ring because I was like, I feel like this is God. I feel like this is God. But I didn't have the money to pay it off by the time the date came. So the first thing that happened was I had like community service. So after I saw the judge, I had community service. I had fees and classes and all these things I had to do. And it was in a very short amount of time. So I was doing community service work at Safe House, Atlanta, and but I wasn't going because I had community service hours. I was going because that's what God put on my heart to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time that they wanted their community service hours, I wasn't calculating what I was doing there. It just came to me like, oh, wait, you've been doing this every week. Just go talk to them and see if they could help you out. So I scrounged up as many hours as I could. And I was like, it's not enough, but at least I'll have something to show. And I hope that this doesn't make my situation worse, but I'm trying.
Sure.
So I go to Miss Carol, who is the head of Safe House, and I was like, Miss Carol, these are the hours that I feel like I've done. Really need you to sign this paper or write me a letter so that I could show it to my probation officer and all this. And she's like, probation officer? What's going on? She has no idea because I'm not telling people my business.
Sure.
And I was like, yes, I don't really want to talk about it. Like, can you just write me this letter, sign here, please? Like, this is the amount of hours that I feel like I've done. And honestly, I'm not trying to cheat anybody or myself. Like, and she's like, Justin, what's going on? I'm like, don't worry about it, Miss Carol. Again, I need you to sign it. She's like, Justin, you know I love you, right? And I'm like, yes, Miss Carol. Love me? Can you just sign this paper, please? And she's like, no, Justin, I'm telling you, I love you. And I was just like, I love you too, Miss Carol. And she's just like, so how many hours do you need to get out of this situation? And I'm like, Miss Carol, this is how many hours as I did. Please just sign it. And she's like, no, I didn't ask you how many hours you did. I asked you how many do you need. She's like, I love you, and I see that you're not that person, and I want to help you out of this situation. Nice. So she ends up writing a whole long letter with everything I need on it for the community service hours. And this is all like a week before. So the other thing was the fines. I was with her one night and we're sitting and I'm like, I'm at this point, I'm like, God, like this is a lost cause. Like you did this, but like the money, like that's impossible. Like, I just feel like it would have to be a miracle. So God was just really revealing himself in this season to me, like undeniably. And so we're sitting and she ends up leaving and I get a notification on my phone and I'm like, all right, this amount of money is dropped into your bank. And I'm like, the bank made a mistake. I'm not going to touch it. I don't even want to look at it. Like, let's just leave it there. And, you know, they'll take their money back out eventually.
Sure.
So a few days go by and I'm like, this money's still here. Like, what is this? Like, what is going on? And I'm seeing it's like, you know, in your bank statements, you could see like, hey, this came from this place. It was like a bunch of random numbers and it was just random. And I was like, okay, this is weird. But there was a number. So I ended up calling the number and I was like, so this was deposited in my account. Like, and long story short, it was money owed to me like 2 years prior.
Wow.
That God gave to, and I remember when I was trying to get that money, I was like, God, I need it so bad, which I really didn't need it. He knew I was going to need it now. So it was miraculous. It was, yeah.
So you guys get married. It was at the wedding. It was great. And then your life changes a bit. So you both love music in two different kind of ways. So talk to us a little bit about what you do, Amber, and then we're going to talk about what Justin does.
Well, just sing.
Okay, so let me help you with this story since you're just going to be so humble. You sing, but we are going through a Christmas production, I think it was, and they need a choir director. And then suddenly, here comes Amber. I always think of like Whoopi Goldberg and Sister Act, and he's like, you're just really fun and calm and just a great. And having sung in the choir, you just bring a calm to people. Did you ever expect, like, I'm going to be the choir director at church?
No, that was not a pursuit, but it's really fun.
Yeah, that was a really cool thing when that happened to you. I was like, okay, because you're so humble about it. Like, you're like, I sing. Beautifully. How about you, Justin? Tell me a little bit about you and your music's a bit different from Amber's. And again, it goes to that, everybody's over here on this side, but I'm going to go check out this side. So tell me a little bit about that.
So I rap, make Christian hip-hop music.
Yeah.
Started a ministry with the help of the amazing Miss Bonnie Tilley.
I only named it.
She only named it like that. But
the fame.
Yeah, so it was just a ministry God gave me. I was doing it at another church, not really the ministry, but I was rapping, and I thought I had to be a part of a scene. And God moved me back to World Harvest Church and showed me that there's very many talented people in the pews that don't get a chance to share their gift because typical Sunday service doesn't have rappers.
Yeah. So that's the cool thing, right? Because not everybody approaches Jesus the same way, right? We're really super different. So the people that Amber ministers to with her music are way different than the people that you minister to with your music, although they can connect. So that's a really kind of pretty cool. So Creators for Christ, you meet every Friday with this group of people that they rap, they do spoken word. There's some artists, right? I know Elise does art.
Yeah.
And Kayla really does like videography and photography is kind of her art as well. Anything else that you have?
That's the gist right now. We had people dancing and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, dance. Yeah. So not only do you begin this, you start to be seen in the church, right? In the kind of Christmas productions and main services and different things. But I recently saw coming across my social media that I should vote for you. Why should I vote for you, Justin? What are you being nominated?
So we were nominated for the Kingdom Nightlife Award. It's like the first ever award for this kind of thing. But I'm not even sure how we got nominated. It was just God, but it's a blessing, you know. So
yeah. So tell me a little bit about your music. Like you're on Spotify, right under
Jbiz. Jbiz.
Okay, and also Creators for Christ.
Creators for Christ.
Creatives for the number, and then Christ. And tell me about, you have an album. Let me say album. You have an album out now. Tell me a little bit about Waging War and what that's all about, and then also what's coming up.
Okay. So Waging War is an album about how we don't fight against flesh and blood. It's a spiritual battle. The whole goal behind it was to empower and stir people up to know and speak out the things like, hey, like I'm here to fight, like, and I'm here to win. And at the end of the day, so the last song on the whole album is called Victory, because like that's how this all ends, is we win. You know? Yeah. So it was really just to stir people up and to motivate them and remind them that life is a battle.
And then you have something new coming out. Has it come out or it's coming out soon?
Actually, this Friday.
Tell me a little bit about the song.
It's called Galatians 5:1. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm, and then do not let yourself be burdened again by yoke of slavery. That's scripture.
It sounds like that's a little bit of your testimony as well, right? Yeah.
It just speaks on how God gives us freedom not to go back to what we were bound to before. And in that freedom, we are able to help other people get free. Yeah, absolutely.
Reach back into the darkness. I was one about. So what's next for you and for Creators for Christ, or the two of you? What's next for you guys?
So for Creators for Christ, we're kind of in like a rebuilding stage, I guess, in a sense, where we've had some people who God has called to do other things. Sure. And then we've had some new people come. So we're kind of learning to lay a better foundation. Nice. With some things, so that so to keep the heart behind it correct, and also just take it to another level in everything that we do. The whole goal is to reach more artists and stir up their gifts, and also to reach the lost. So
very cool. How can they connect with you as it relates to Creators for Christ and your music? Look at them and tell them.
So you could follow us on Instagram at Creators for Christ Ministries. You can follow me at Jbiz Music. That's Jbiz Music. We're also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all main streaming platforms. That's the gist of it. That's
cool. How about you, Amber? What are you looking forward to in the future?
That's a big question. But I love languages, and I've since fourth grade spoken Spanish. Spoken Portuguese, gotten the opportunity to translate Portuguese in the Olympics in 2016, and that's just something fun that I'll do. Even we're having a three-way conversation and y'all two are talking, sometimes in the back of my I'm translating. That's just something fun for me. So I'm thankful the church to give me the opportunity to practice that. Translating Portuguese right now, since we have some Portuguese members. So yeah, I'm looking into perhaps getting certified on that different. This is a completely different wavelength, but that's one of the gifts, like again, music for both of us, languages. So
very cool. Yeah. And so before we end, I want to say congratulations to you because I believe you just recently graduated with something. Tell me a little bit about that. How that played out.
So I just graduated from Gwinnett Technical College with 2 degrees, one in cybersecurity and one in networking. So that was something that God told me to finish.
Mm-hmm.
I started a long time ago, but it's done now. So
awesome. So anything else you want to tell our users as we wrap up? You good?
Good.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us on the couch. Guys, we're going to put their information in the comments. If you want to connect with them, please do. Support them. Listen to their music. It's phenomenal. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of My Friends and Their Stories. Tune in to see who's sitting on the couch next.